The moment the lawyer slid that envelope across the mahogany table, I knew my life was about to explode. Inside, a $10 million inheritance for my sister. For me? For words that felt like a slap. Go earn your own. But what happened next turned our entire family upside down, exposed decades of buried secrets, and revealed why Grandma's cruel final message was actually her most loving act. You're not going to believe where this rabbit hole leads. Hey, story lover! Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go. Let me paint you the picture of that day. It was a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, one of those gray October days where the wind cuts right through you. I'm sitting in this sterile law office with my sister Caitlin, both of us in our best clothes, both of us pretending we weren't thinking about money while we waited for our grandmother's will to be read. Caitlin kept checking her phone, scrolling through Instagram like this was just another Tuesday. Me? I couldn't sit still. My hands were sweating, my leg was bouncing under that polished conference table. See, I'd been the one taking care of Grandma Rose for the last 3 years of her life. Every doctor's appointment, every grocery run, every late-night emergency call when she couldn't remember where she put her medication. Caitlin lived her Instagram-perfect life 2 states away, visiting maybe twice a year for holidays, always with some excuse about work, about her busy social calendar, about how complicated it was to get time off. But here we were, equal heirs in the eyes of the law, waiting to hear how a woman who'd worked her entire life cleaning office buildings had managed to accumulate what we'd heard whispers about, a substantial fortune. The devastating revelation. Mr. Patterson, the lawyer, was one of those old-school types. Wire-rimmed glasses, three-piece suit, the kind of man who probably still used a fountain pen. He cleared his throat and opened that manila folder like he was performing surgery. To my granddaughter Caitlin, he began, and I watched my sister sit up straighter. I leave the sum of $10 million, along with my condominium in Florida and all associated assets. The room went dead silent. 10 million. Not 10,000. Not 100,000. $10 million. Caitlin's hand flew to her mouth. I think I stopped breathing entirely. Where the hell had Grandma Rose gotten $10 million? She'd lived in the same modest house for 40 years, drove a 15-year-old Honda, clipped coupons like it was her part-time job. But Mr. Patterson wasn't done. To my grandson, and he looked directly at me, I leave this personal note. He slid a handwritten piece of paper across that mahogany table. My grandmother's shaky handwriting, probably one of the last things she ever wrote. Go earn your own. That's it. 4 words. No explanation. No context. Just go earn your own, while my sister inherited enough money to never work another day in her life. Caitlin was crying, happy tears, shocked tears, I just won the lottery tears. She kept saying, "Oh my God," over and over, covering her face with her hands like she couldn't process it. And me? I felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. The immediate aftermath. The ride home was torture. Caitlin called everyone, her husband, her best friend, her coworkers. I could hear her squealing through the phone. 10 million. Can you believe it? $10 million. Each conversation felt like another knife twisting in my gut. When she finally hung up, she looked at me with what I think was supposed to be sympathy. I'm sure there's more to it, she said. Maybe there's another account or something. Maybe this was just the first part. But we both knew. There was no second part. No hidden account. No gotcha moment where I'd get my share. I'd been cut out completely, and the woman who'd raised me after our parents died in that car accident when I was 12 had left me with nothing but 4 words that felt like a final slap in the face. That night, I sat in my studio apartment, The same studio apartment I'd been living in for 3 years because I'd been spending every spare dollar helping Grandma with her medical bills, and I tried to make sense of it. Had I done something wrong? Said something that hurt her? Was this punishment for some forgotten childhood transgression? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through old photos. There was Grandma at my high school graduation, beaming with pride. Grandma teaching me to change a tire when I turned 16. Grandma sitting beside my hospital bed when I had appendicitis, refusing to leave even when visiting hours ended. None of it made sense. The dark period. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. Caitlin moved fast. She quit her job, bought a new car, started looking at houses in neighborhoods I couldn't even afford to drive through. Meanwhile, I was picking up extra shifts at the construction company where I worked, trying to figure out how I was going to make rent without the side income I'd been getting from helping Grandma. Friends and family started treating me differently. Some looked at me with pity, poor guy got screwed over by his own grandmother. Others looked at me with suspicion, what did he do to deserve getting cut out like that? The worst were the ones who tried to be helpful, suggesting that maybe I should contest the will, maybe there was some legal loophole, maybe Grandma wasn't in her right mind. But I knew Grandma Rose. Even at 91, her mind was sharp as a tack. She'd made this decision deliberately, and for reasons I couldn't understand. I started having panic attacks. Real ones, chest tightening, can't breathe, world-spinning panic attacks. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, thinking about the future I'd planned. I'd been saving to buy a house, thinking about starting a family, imagining a life where I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. All of that evaporated with 4 words on a piece of paper. Caitlin tried to help in her way. She offered to loan me money to invest in my future. But every offer felt like charity, like confirmation that I was the family failure who needed handouts from his lottery winner sister. The worst part? I started believing it. Maybe Grandma saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Maybe I really was the kind of person who'd never amount to anything without help. The first clue. 3 months after the will reading, I was cleaning out Grandma's house. Caitlin had hired a company to handle most of it. She was too busy house hunting in Malibu to deal with the emotional labor of going through 70 years of accumulated memories. But I couldn't let strangers rifle through Grandma's things. It felt wrong, disrespectful. I was in her bedroom, packing up her jewelry box, nothing valuable, just costume pieces and sentimental trinkets, when I found it. Hidden in a secret compartment I'd never noticed before, another envelope with my name on it. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a letter, longer this time, in Grandma's careful handwriting. My dear boy, if you're reading this, then you've found what I hoped you'd find. You always were the curious one, the one who looked deeper, who asked questions. Caitlin takes things at face value. It's not a criticism, just an observation. But you dig until you understand. The money I left Caitlin will make her comfortable, but it won't make her strong. Money she didn't earn will never teach her what she's capable of. But you, my darling boy, you have something much more valuable than $10 million. You have the heart of someone who will work for what matters, who will build something real, who will know the value of every dollar because you've earned every single one. Look in the basement, behind the water heater. And remember, the greatest fortunes aren't inherited, they're created. I must have read that letter 10 times before I finally made my way to the basement. The hidden truth. Behind the water heater, exactly where she'd said, was a small fireproof safe I'd never noticed. Inside, documents. Lots of documents. Stock certificates, property deeds, bank account information, and a business plan written in my grandmother's handwriting. Turns out, Grandma Rose hadn't been just a cleaning lady. She'd been an entrepreneur. Every office building she'd cleaned, she'd studied. She'd learned about real estate, about investing, about business. With her modest salary and incredible discipline, she'd been buying properties, fixing them up, renting them out. She'd been playing the stock market with the patience of someone who understood that real wealth builds slowly over decades. But here's the kicker, the 10 million she'd left Caitlin? That was just the cash, just the liquid assets she'd accumulated in the last few years. The real estate portfolio, the business she'd been building, the investment accounts she'd been growing for 30 years, all of that was detailed in these documents, along with a note explaining that she'd been waiting for me to find it. This business, she'd written, needs someone who understands work, who values what it takes to build something from nothing. Caitlin would sell it all and spend the money on things that make her happy for a moment. But you'll make it grow. You'll understand what I've built here, and you'll make it even better. The conservative estimate of the business and property portfolio? $37 million. And all of it would be mine if I could prove I understood how to run it, how to grow it, how to honor the work she'd put into building it. The real test. But there was a catch. There's always a catch, right? I couldn't just inherit it. I had to earn it. The documents included a challenge, a year-long test where I'd have to successfully manage 3 of her rental properties, grow their value by at least 15%, and document every decision, every improvement, every lesson learned. Only then would the full inheritance be transferred to me. I spent the next week studying those documents like my life depended on it. Because it did. Grandma had left me detailed notes about each property, about the tenants, about the improvements she'd planned but never implemented. She'd left me a roadmap, but I still had to drive the car. The first property was a duplex in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. The tenants were good people, but the building needed work, new roof, updated electrical, a complete renovation of one of the units. The second was a small apartment building with 5 units, fully occupied but undercharging for rent based on market rates. The third was a commercial space that had been vacant for 6 months, waiting for the right tenant. I quit my construction job, used my savings, all $3,200 of it, as seed money. Started learning everything I could about being a landlord, about property management, about renovation and improvement. I made mistakes. Lots of them. I hired the wrong contractor for the roof and had to fire him halfway through. I underestimated the cost of the electrical work and had to take out a personal loan to cover it. But slowly, things started coming together. The transformation. That year changed me in ways I never expected. Every morning, I'd wake up knowing that my success or failure was entirely in my hands. No boss to blame, no company policies to hide behind, no safety net except my own knowledge and determination. I learned to negotiate with contractors, to research market rates, to spot opportunities that others missed. I learned to see potential where others saw problems. That vacant commercial space? I turned it into a trendy coffee shop by finding a young entrepreneur who had great ideas but no capital. I helped her secure financing, negotiated a lease that worked for both of us, and watched as she transformed that empty shell into something that became the heart of the neighborhood. The duplex became a showcase property after the renovation. I increased the rent by 40% and still had a waiting list of potential tenants. The apartment building required more finesse. I couldn't just raise everyone's rent overnight without losing good tenants. Instead, I improved the common areas, added amenities, and gradually brought the units up to market rate as leases renewed. By the end of the year, I'd exceeded every target Grandma had set. But more importantly, I discovered something about myself that I'd never known. I wasn't just good at this, I loved it. I loved the challenge, the problem solving, the satisfaction of taking something neglected and making it valuable again. Caitlin, meanwhile, had blown through almost $2 million. New house, new car, new wardrobe, exotic vacations, investments in her friends' questionable business ventures. She was still rich, don't get me wrong, but she was learning that $10 million isn't infinite when you're spending it instead of growing it. The final revelation. On the anniversary of Grandma's death, I received the final transfer documents. $37 million in assets, plus the business she'd built, plus something even more valuable, the knowledge of how to make it all grow. I understand now why she did it. Caitlin needed security, Needed to know she'd never have to worry about money. But I needed something different. I needed to know what I was capable of. I needed to learn that the most valuable inheritance isn't money, it's the confidence that comes from building something yourself. Those 4 words that shattered my world, "go earn your own," weren't a rejection. They were a challenge. They were Grandma Rose's way of saying, "I believe in you enough to know you don't need my money. You have something better. You have the ability to create your own fortune." Today, that property portfolio is worth over $50 million. I've expanded the business, acquired new properties, helped dozens of young entrepreneurs get their start. And every morning when I wake up, I know that everything I have, I've earned. Caitlin and I have a better relationship now. She's learned to be more careful with money, and I've learned that there's room for both of us to be successful in our own ways. But sometimes, late at night, I still pull out that first letter, "go earn your own," and I smile. Because sometimes the cruelest kindness is the push you need to discover who you really are. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more real stories about life, money, and the unexpected ways our families shape who we become. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below.